Step into your greatness, let it shine oh so bright. I am worthy VIP, gonna take you to new heights. Turn the volume up, let's ignite your soul's delight. Join the journey now, everything gonna be alright. Hey, hey, you know you're worthy all day.
All right, so we're diving deep today into Mel Robbins's The Let Them theory.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you guys have sent in some pretty interesting excerpts, and I'm super curious to see what we can uncover. You know, we're going to be talking about relationships, family dynamics, even figuring out what you want in love. So this could get pretty personal.
Right.
Get ready for a little bit of self-reflection along the way.
I'm ready when you're... Robbins doesn't hold back.
Yeah.
She jumps right into a relatable story about her own mini meltdown over her son's prom plans.
Oh, God.
So I think anyone who's ever felt that pressure to orchestrate like the perfect event can relate.
Absolutely.
No.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But she uses this to make a bigger point, right? It's like a sneaky way to talking about this common trap we all fall into, trying to control things that are ultimately out of our hands.
You got it. That's exactly it. And that, that constant striving for control can be detrimental to our mental well-being. It's a recipe for stress, frustration, and even resentment.
For sure, for sure.
And that's where the let them part comes in.
Okay.
But it's important to understand that this doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up altogether.
Hold on, because that's where I get tripped up. If we see someone we care about heading down what we think is the wrong path, isn't it our responsibility to at least try and steer them in a better direction?
Here's the thing. We often confuse influence with control.
Okay.
And, trying to force someone to change usually backfires.
Right.
Because it threatens their autonomy.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Robbins is highlighting a fundamental psychological truth.
Okay.
We simply can't control other people.
Right.
And the more energy we pour into trying, the more drained and resentful we become.
Okay, so let them isn't about enabling bad behavior. It's about recognizing the limits of our control.
Yeah.
But what about our own well-being in those situations?
Right.
How do we protect ourselves from getting dragged down by someone else's choices?
So that's where the let me part of the equation comes in.
Yeah.
Robbins emphasizes that by letting go of the need to control others, we reclaim our power to choose how we respond.
Okay.
So we shift our focus from what we can't control to what we can.
So it's almost like a mental shift.
Yes.
We're stepping back from the drama and saying, okay, this is happening, but I'm not going to let it dictate my emotional state.
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility for our own well-being, even amidst chaos.
I like that.
And it's a game changer, especially when it comes to navigating those tricky adult friendships that Robbins dedicates a whole chapter to.
Yes, adult friendships can feel like a minefield sometimes.
Totally.
And there's this thing she calls the great scattering.
Yeah.
What is that exactly?
So the great scattering is this phenomenon where friendships naturally shift and sometimes fade as we move through adulthood.
Okay.
Our lives change so much with careers, relationships, families, locations.
Yeah.
It's natural for some friendships to evolve or even dissolve as our circumstances and priorities shift.
Okay. That makes sense logically,
Yeah.
but emotionally it can still be tough to process.
Oh, for sure.
Especially in the age of social media where you're constantly bombarded with images of everyone else seemingly having the time of their lives without you.
Yeah. And Robbins actually shares a vulnerable moment in the book.
Okay.
Where she experiences this firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about, scrolling through social media and seeing photos of a weekend getaway
Yeah.
with some of her friends, and she wasn't invited.
Oh, wow.
And she's honest about how much that stung.
Okay, that's brutally relatable.
Right.
Even if you understand that friendships ebb and flow, it still hurts to feel left out.
It does. But here's the thing. Let them isn't about giving up on a friendship altogether.
Right.
It's about accepting that sometimes things change and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing those friendships that still bring you joy and energy and gracefully letting go of those that no longer serve you.
But how do you know when it's time to let go?
Yeah. I mean, some friendships go through rough patches, right?
Yeah.
How do you distinguish between a temporary dip and a friendship that's truly run its course?
So Robbins highlights the importance of understanding the 3 pillars of friendship: proximity, timing, and energy.
Okay.
Proximity is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You're more likely to be friends with people you're physically close to.
Right.
Timing refers to being in similar life stages, like being single and career-focused at the same time, or raising young kids together.
Okay. Proximity and timing makes sense, but what about energy?
Yeah.
That one feels a little less tangible.
Yeah, energy is crucial.
Okay.
It's about being on the same wavelength, sharing similar values and interests, and genuinely enjoying each other's company. Even if you're geographically close and in the same life stage, if your energies don't align, the friendship might fizzle.
So it's not just about putting in the effort, it's about recognizing when the connection itself is fading.
Exactly. And sometimes acknowledging that can be a kindness to both parties.
It frees you up to invest in friendships that feel more nourishing and fulfilling.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of complex relationships,
we
can't forget about family.
Oh, absolutely.
Those dynamics can be even more challenging.
No, family comes with all sorts of baggage.
Oh, yeah.
Long histories, ingrained patterns, unspoken expectations. It's a whole other level of complexity.
For sure.
And don't even get me started on step families.
Oh, yeah. Robbins dives into all of that.
Okay.
She talks about how the dynamics in blended families can be especially tricky.
Yeah.
With everyone adjusting to new roles and maybe even grieving previous family structures.
Right.
There's a lot to unpack there.
A lot to unpack. And then there's the challenge of dealing with family members who have strong opinions.
Yes.
Those relatives who always have something to say about your life choices?
Oh, yeah.
Even when you haven't asked for their input?
The unsolicited advice givers.
Yes.
Robbins offers a really helpful concept for navigating those situations. Frame of reference. She encourages us to consider where our loved ones are coming from, even when their opinions feel hurtful or judgmental.
So it's about trying to understand the underlying motivations behind their behavior, rather than taking their words personally.
Exactly. Robbins shares a story about how her own mother initially disapproved of her husband.
Oh, really?
It caused a lot of tension in their relationship.
I'm curious to hear how that played out. Her mom didn't like Chris.
It wasn't about judging Chris personally.
Okay.
Robbins later realized that her mom's disapproval stemmed from her own fear of losing her daughter.
Okay.
Her mom's frame of reference was rooted in her own experiences and anxieties.
Gotcha.
Not in any genuine dislike for Chris.
That's so insightful. It's a good reminder that sometimes the things that bother us about our families aren't actually about us.
Exactly.
But about their own fears and insecurities or past experiences.
Precisely. And understanding that can help us respond with more compassion and less defensiveness.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we have to agree with their opinions.
Right.
But it allows us to see them in a new light.
So let them can help us navigate even those deeply ingrained family patterns and expectations.
For sure.
It's about recognizing that everyone is operating from their own unique frame of reference.
Yeah.
And sometimes those frames clash.
They do.
But let's be honest, family gatherings can also be a breeding ground for something else. Comparison.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
The book gives an example of Robin's own daughter struggling with comparing herself to her sister.
Oh, yeah.
One is athletic, the other is musical.
Right.
And it creates this whole dynamic of feeling less than.
Classic sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
But is all comparison bad? I mean, sometimes seeing someone else achieve something amazing can be motivating, right?
Sure.
It can push you to step up your own game.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And Robbins actually distinguishes between two types of comparison, torturous and inspirational.
Okay, let's break those down.
Yeah.
Torturous comparison sounds, well, torturous.
It is. It's that feeling of fixating on things we can't change.
Right.
Like someone else's natural talents, physical attributes, or effortless successes. Torturous comparison only leads to misery and self-doubt.
So what's the antidote?
Yeah.
How do we shift from torturous to inspirational comparison?
Inspirational comparison is about using others' achievements as a roadmap, not a weapon.
Okay.
Instead of feeling threatened or inadequate,
Right.
we can choose to learn from them, see what's possible, and maybe even get a little fired up to reach our own potential.
It's about reframing those feelings of envy or inadequacy into fuel for our own growth.
Exactly. And sometimes that aha moment comes from the most unexpected places.
Oh, yeah.
Robbins tells a story about her friend Molly, who is struggling to launch her interior design business.
Okay.
She was constantly comparing herself to famous designers, making excuses and generally procrastinating on putting herself out there.
Well, wait, wouldn't that make her even more frustrated?
You would think.
How did she turn that around?
One day, Molly sees this woman in her neighborhood with absolutely zero design experience suddenly killing it on social media, getting all these clients and accolades.
Oh, man.
It drove Molly crazy.
I can feel the frustration just hearing about it.
Right. That's got to be tough to swallow.
Yeah.
It was, but here's where it gets interesting. Instead of wallowing in jealousy, Molly had a realization.
Okay.
This woman who was driving her bonkers was actually showing her exactly what she needed to do.
So her jealousy became a source of inspiration.
Yes. It was a total game changer.
Talk about turning lemons into lemonade.
It was. It became this inspirational comparison.
Yeah.
The woman's success wasn't taking anything away from Molly. It was illuminating the path forward.
Right.
It's a powerful reminder that we can learn from anyone, even those who annoy us.
That's brilliant. It's like sometimes our biggest irritations can be our greatest teachers if we're open to seeing things from a different perspective.
It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another challenging aspect of the let them theory. What about those situations where we genuinely want to influence someone for their own good?
Ooh.
Like when we love someone but wish they'd change a habit or make a healthier choice.
That's where things get tricky, right?
Yeah.
Because even if our intentions are good, trying to force change on someone usually backfires.
You're absolutely right.
Mm.
And Robbins dives deep into the science of motivation to explain why.
All right, I'm intrigued. Let's unpack this a bit further because I have a feeling this is where things get really interesting. So we were talking about those times when we really want to see someone make a positive change, but we know that nagging or lecturing rarely works. What's the psychology behind that?
Well, it all comes down to control.
Okay.
Our brains are wired to protect our sense of autonomy. So when we feel pressured to change, even if it's for our own good, it triggers a stress response.
Okay.
And that stress response actually makes us less likely to change, even if we logically know it's the right thing to do.
It's like that rebellious teenager inside all of us, right?
Exactly.
Don't tell me what to do. Right? So instead of trying to control the other person's behavior, Robbins suggests we focus on influence. It's about creating an environment where the person feels supported and empowered to make the change themselves.
Okay. I love that idea of empowering others.
Yeah.
But in a practical sense, how do we do that?
Yeah.
Are there any specific tips from the book that our listeners can try out?
Robbins outlines a technique called the ABC loop.
Okay.
It's a framework for having those tricky conversations in a way that encourages change rather than resistance.
ABC loop. I like it. It's catchy and easy to remember.
Yeah.
Break it down for us. What does each letter stand for?
All right, so the A stands for apologize.
Okay.
We start by acknowledging any past pressure we've put on the person owning our part in the dynamic.
Okay.
This sets a tone of humility and understanding.
So it's about admitting that our previous attempts to help might have actually been counterproductive?
That's the idea. Then we move to B, which stands for ask.
Okay.
But we're not asking leading questions or trying to manipulate them into seeing our point of view.
Right. We're asking open-ended questions to genuinely understand their perspective, their motivations, their barriers to change.
So it's about shifting from giving advice to genuine listening and trying to see things from their shoes.
Exactly. This helps the person feel heard and respected, which, as we discussed, is crucial for restoring that sense of autonomy.
Right.
And finally, C has two parts, back off and celebrate.
Okay, backing off makes sense if we're trying to avoid that pressure cooker dynamic.
Right.
What does celebrating have to do with it?
We back off from the pressure, giving them space to process and make their own choices.
Mm-hmm.
And then crucially, we celebrate any progress they make, no matter how small.
Okay.
It's about positive reinforcement, creating positive associations with the desired change.
That makes sense. Celebrating small wins probably feels a lot more encouraging than constantly pointing out what they're not doing yet.
Exactly.
Yep.
Robbins also talks about the power of modeling.
Oh,
It's the idea that actions speak louder than words.
So if you want someone to make a change, the best way to influence them is to embody that change yourself.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
So let's say you're trying to encourage a loved one to be more active.
Okay.
Instead of nagging them about going to the gym, you start taking walks,
Mm-hmm.
maybe joining a yoga class, making physical activity a visible part of your own life.
Subtly making it more appealing and less about them being wrong for not already doing it.
Right. It takes the pressure off and also plants a seed.
Okay.
They see you enjoying the benefits, and it might spark their own motivation.
Yeah.
Plus, it reinforces the idea that change is possible.
Right.
You're living proof.
I like that. It's about showing, not telling.
Yeah.
But what about those situations where someone we care about is dealing with something really serious?
Yeah.
Like addiction, mental health issues, things that feel way beyond our ability to influence.
Right.
How does let them apply in those contexts?
That's definitely the toughest application of the theory, and Robbins doesn't sugarcoat it. She shares a story about learning this lesson the hard way with her own daughter's anxiety.
Oh, wow.
For months, she let her daughter sleep on the floor of her room, thinking she was being supportive and comforting.
That's heartbreaking, but I can see how a parent would do anything to ease their child's suffering. What did she realize about that approach?
She realized she was unintentionally enabling her daughter's avoidance.
Oh.
By rescuing her from the anxiety, she was actually preventing her from developing the coping skills she needed to manage it on her own.
So as hard as it is, sometimes we need to step back and allow our loved ones to face the natural consequences of their actions.
Robbins is very clear about this. We can't want someone's recovery more than they do.
Right.
Trying to force it will only backfire and potentially prolong the cycle. Sometimes allowing someone to hit rock bottom is the catalyst for them to finally seek help or make a change.
That sounds incredibly tough, both for the person struggling and for those who love them. Is there anything we can do in those situations?
Yeah.
How do we support someone without enabling them?
It's a delicate balance, but it's possible.
Okay.
Robbins emphasizes that we can offer practical support, be a steady presence, and validate their feelings without rescuing them from the consequences of their choices.
Okay, I think I'm starting to understand the nuance here, but I'd love to hear some concrete examples. What does that kind of support look like in action?
She offers some great practical examples. Something as simple as dropping off paper plates and cups for a new mom who's overwhelmed,
Okay.
so she doesn't have to worry about dishes. Or offering to take a friend's kids to the park for a few hours
Okay.
to give them a much-needed break.
Those are such thoughtful gestures. It's about showing up in a way that truly meets their needs without taking over their responsibilities.
Exactly. It's about holding space for their process, believing in their ability to get through it even when they don't believe in themselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the most powerful support we can offer.
Okay, this has been incredibly insightful. We've covered letting go of control, navigating friendships and family, and even understanding how to influence those we love. But I feel like there's one more big piece of the puzzle we haven't addressed yet. Romantic relationships.
You're absolutely right. And let them has some profound implications for how we approach dating commitment and even heartbreak.
Ooh, yes. I'm ready to dive into that. This is where it gets really personal for a lot of people, myself included. What does Robbins have to say about finding and nurturing love?
She starts by acknowledging the challenges of dating in the modern world.
Right.
It can be tough out there,
Yeah, I can.
but she emphasizes that let them can be a game changer when it comes to choosing the right relationship and avoiding those painful patterns of chasing after those who aren't truly available or aligned with us.
That's something a lot of people struggle with, myself included. So how does let them actually play out in the dating world?
Okay.
Give us some practical tips.
It's about letting go of the fantasy
Okay.
and paying attention to actions rather than words. Early on in dating, we often get swept up in the potential of a relationship,
Yes.
ignoring red flags because we so desperately want it to work out.
Been there. It's like we create these elaborate stories in our heads about who the person is, even when the evidence suggests otherwise.
Robbins cuts through that noise. She says, if they like you, you'll know. If they don't, you'll be confused.
Yeah, okay.
It's about trusting your gut
Yeah.
and letting go of those relationships that leave you feeling uncertain or insecure.
Preach. No more settling for breadcrumbs or mixed signals.
Right.
But what about those situations where we're already committed to someone, but we're starting to realize we might not be truly compatible in the long run?
The age-old dilemma of commitment versus compatibility.
Yes.
Robbins uses this great example in the book of a couple where one partner is offered an incredible job opportunity in London,
Okay.
but the other partner is deeply rooted in their current location and has no desire to move.
Oof, that's a tough one. How do you navigate those big life decisions, especially when your partner's vision doesn't align with yours?
Robbins encourages us to be brutally honest with ourselves,
Okay.
even when it's painful. She poses a powerful question. Will you regret breaking up with them more than you'll regret not moving to London?
Wow.
Or in other situations, will you resent them if you compromise on this core value or dream?
It's about weighing the potential heartbreak of staying versus the potential heartbreak of leaving, right?
Exactly. And sometimes the most loving choice for both ourselves and our partner is to let go,
Right.
even if it hurts like hell.
That's a tough truth, but it's something a lot of people need to hear. But speaking of heartbreak, Sometimes things just don't work out no matter how much we let them or how hard we try. What does Robbins have to say about navigating those painful breakups?
She doesn't shy away from this either.
Okay.
She acknowledges how excruciating heartbreak can be and offers some incredibly compassionate advice for navigating the grieving process.
All right, it's grabbing a tissue because this is about to get real.
Well, first she emphasizes that it's okay to not be okay. Heartbreak is a legitimate form of grief, and we need to allow ourselves to feel it fully without judgment.
No toxic positivity here. We're allowed to wallow for a bit.
Absolutely. But she also offers some practical strategies for moving through that grieving process in a healthy way.
Okay, give us the goods. What are her top tips for surviving a breakup?
First, no contact for 30 days.
30 days.
This is crucial for giving ourselves space to heal and detach without re-triggering those attachment patterns.
That sounds extreme. Is it always necessary?
Yeah.
What if it was an amicable split?
Robbins is firm about this one. Even if the breakup was amicable, that time and space allows you to reconnect with yourself and gain clarity without the other person's influence. It's about hitting the reset button.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful, even if it's tough to do. What else?
Next, fill your calendar with positive distractions.
Okay.
Don't give yourself too much time to wallow. Connect with friends, pursue hobbies, get out of the house, and experience new things.
I love that. Distraction can be a lifesaver in those early stages of heartbreak.
She also talks about embracing self-care, nurturing our bodies and minds with healthy food, exercise, rest, whatever fills our cup. And of course, leaning on our support system, letting our loved ones hold us up while we mend.
It's all about being gentle with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Giving ourselves permission to grieve and heal at our own pace.
Exactly. And Robbins offers this incredibly powerful reframe for the whole experience.
Okay.
She asks, if you knew that the love of your life was just around the corner and this breakup was bringing you one step closer to meeting them, how would you spend your nights and weekends while you're single?
Ooh, I love that. It shifts the focus from loss to possibility. Okay, so we've covered a lot of relationship territory here, from those early butterflies to the messy reality of heartbreak. But there's one more relationship we need to talk about, and I think it might be the most important one of all. The relationship we have with ourselves.
Yeah, it feels like we've talked about every type of relationship under the sun, but you're right, there's one more that's absolutely fundamental to all the others.
Yeah.
What does Robbins have to say about our relationship with ourselves?
This is where it all comes full circle.
Okay.
All those external relationships, friendships, family dynamics, romantic entanglements, they all stem from how we relate to ourselves.
Okay.
Let them ultimately guide us towards a deeper sense of self-love, acceptance, and permission to be who we truly are.
So it's an inside-out approach.
Yeah.
We start with ourselves, and then everything else falls into place. Exactly. Robbins reminds us that we don't need anyone else's permission to be happy, to pursue our passions, to express ourselves authentically, or to create a life that truly lights us up. It all starts with giving ourselves that permission.
I feel like that's such a powerful message, but it's also one of the hardest things to put into practice. It's so easy to get caught up in seeking validation from others, especially in today's world of social media and constant comparison.
It is a constant practice.
Yeah.
But Robbins offers some really practical advice for cultivating that self-love and acceptance.
Okay.
She encourages us to start by asking ourselves some key questions.
Okay, like what?
Am I respecting my own boundaries?
Yeah.
Am I showing myself the same compassion and kindness that I offer to those I love? Am I allowing myself to dream big without waiting for validation from others?
Those are great questions to reflect on. It's so easy to get caught up in what other people think, but ultimately our own self-acceptance is the foundation for everything else.
Robbins ends the book with this beautiful analogy. She compares life to the sky, constantly changing. Sometimes stormy, sometimes calm, sometimes radiant with sunshine.
I love a good analogy. Paint the picture for us.
Imagine standing beneath this vast, ever-shifting sky. We often waste so much energy trying to control it, wishing away the clouds clinging to the sunny days. But the sky doesn't care about our preferences. It simply exists.
It's a beautiful reminder that we can't control everything. Life will inevitably throw us curveballs.
Exactly. But here's the key. The sky's beauty isn't diminished by the storms or the clouds. In fact, those elements make the sunshine even more precious, the clear blue sky even more breathtaking.
It's about embracing the full spectrum of experience, the light and the shadow, the joy and the sorrow.
Precisely. And the same goes for our lives. We can't control the external circumstances,
Right.
but we can control how we respond to them. We can choose to let go of that need for control, to accept what is, and to focus on cultivating our own inner sunshine regardless of the weather.
That's such a powerful and liberating perspective. So if we were to distill the essence of let them into a single takeaway, what would it be?
It's about reclaiming our power both internally and externally. It's about understanding that true freedom comes not from controlling others, but from mastering our own reactions, choices, and self-perception.
It's about stepping off that metaphorical seesaw, letting go of the rope, and choosing to focus on what we can control, our own thoughts, actions, and the quality of our relationships.
And in doing so, we create a ripple effect. When we shift our internal world, our external world starts to reflect that change. We attract healthier relationships, we make more empowered choices, and we create a life that feels more aligned with our authentic selves.
So it's not just about letting them be, it's about letting ourselves be too.
Exactly. It's about giving ourselves permission to be fully human, messy, imperfect, ever-evolving, and to embrace others with that same radical acceptance.
This deep dive has been eye-opening, inspiring, and honestly a little bit life-changing. What a powerful reminder that we have more control over our happiness and the quality of our relationships than we often realize. It all comes down to those two simple words: let them.
Let them be who they are so we can finally let ourselves be who we are.
That's a wrap for this deep dive into the let them theory. Thanks for joining us. And remember, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. Go out there and let your true self shine.
Step into your greatness, let it shine oh so bright. I am worthy VIP, gonna take you to new heights. Turn the volume up, let's ignite your soul's delight. Join the journey now, everything gonna be alright. Hey, hey, you know you're worthy all day. Stand tall, feel the love come your way. VIP every single day. Let's celebrate, it's your time to sway. Unlock your power, let your spirit take flight. I am worthy VIP, beaming light into the night. Feel the magic spark, it's a beautiful sight. Here to cheer you on, life shining a new light.